The air shimmered, not with magic, but with a wrongness, a fundamental twisting of reality that vibrated deep in Blade's bones. One moment he was tracking a nest of newly turned in a familiar New York alley. The next, the cityscape was subtly different, the sky a shade too bright, and a giant, gleaming Squadron Supreme of America banner hung from what should have been the Avengers Tower. Blade, a creature straddling worlds, a perpetual outsider, felt this reality shift as a profound internal dissonance, yet remained oddly untouched by its reshaping power. While everyone else accepted this new truth as their lifelong normal, Blade carried the echoes of the real Earth within him, a memory of a world where Earth's mightiest heroes stood as a beacon, not as a forgotten dream. This was a Mephisto-Coulson special, a horrifying experiment where the natural order of heroes had been erased and a tyrannical Squadron Supreme ruled, unopposed. This was a world where the Avengers had never formed, and Blade knew, with a certainty that chilled him, that he was the only one who remembered them. His first task was to find the scattered remnants of that potential, the individuals whose destinies had been rerouted. His search led him first to a sprawling, opulent estate, far removed from any charitable endeavor. Inside, amidst the clinking of glasses and the cold, hard gleam of newly forged weapons, was Tony Stark. But this wasn't the brilliant, flawed, yet ultimately heroic Stark Blade remembered. This Tony was a callous arms dealer, a magnate of conflict, his genius channeled solely into profit and power. The glint in his eye was not curiosity, but calculation. His wit, a weapon, not a shield. Blade confronted him in a quiet moment, away from the sycophants. "You're meant for more than this, Stark," Blade stated, his voice low, a gravelly counterpoint to the champagne-soaked air. Tony merely scoffed, dismissing him as a madman. But Blade persisted, painting a picture of a future Tony had never known, a future where his intellect saved lives, not merely profited from their destruction. He spoke of the pure thrill of innovation applied to genuine good, of the camaraderie of true equals. There was a flicker, a brief spark in Tony's eyes, perhaps a buried memory or the irresistible pull of a destiny unfulfilled. Blade left him with a single, unadorned arc reactor blueprint, a testament to what could be, what should be. The seed was planted. Next, the trail led him to a forgotten corner of Europe, to a dive bar filled with the bitter tang of cheap ale and regret. Here sat Thor, but not the proud thunder god. This Thor was a hard-drinking atheist, his magnificent mane now unkempt, his once bright eyes clouded by an active disdain for the very concept of gods. He spoke of faith as a weakness, of power as a burden, of purpose as a lie. Mjolnir, his legendary hammer, lay abandoned, almost forgotten, gathering dust in a secluded, overgrown ruin, a stark symbol of his self-imposed exile. Blade approached, not with reverence, but with a blunt challenge. You deny the gods, yet you embody their strength. You drown your sorrows, but you cannot drown the hero within you. Thor roared, enraged by the perceived mockery, yet Blade stood firm. He spoke of the screams of the innocent, of the squadron's quiet tyranny, of the forgotten valor that still resided in Thor's very blood. He didn't preach about Asgard, but about the innate responsibility of strength. He challenged Thor to simply lift the hammer, not as an act of faith, but as a test of a different kind of will. When Thor's fingers, almost instinctively, brushed against the worn leather grip, a jolt, not just of electricity, but of forgotten purpose, visibly shook him. The atheism didn't vanish, but the God-sized hole in his heart began to ache with something more than just drink. Finally, Blade sought out the most tragic figure of all, Captain America. Not frozen in ice, but metaphorically frozen in time, a relic of a past that this world had never truly valued. He was rediscovered by a historical society, held in suspended animation, a curiosity in a museum exhibit, a symbol of a war that had been concluded by other less noble hands. His shield, pristine and unscarred, lay beside him, a monument to unspent heroism. Blade, with a grim determination, orchestrated his awakening. As Steve Rogers' eyes fluttered open, blinking into a world he didn't recognize, Blade didn't offer platitudes. He laid out the harsh truth. This world had no Captain America. It had no Avengers, but it desperately needed someone to stand for what was right. He showed him the true face of the Squadron's rule, the quiet oppression beneath the public adoration. And in Steve's eyes, even after decades of slumber, the spirit of justice, the unwavering moral compass, ignited instantly. He didn't need to be awakened to heroism, he was heroism. He simply needed to know where the fight was. With these three improbable heroes by his side, a cynical inventor tentatively reclaiming his conscience, a disillusioned god grappling with his forgotten strength, and a man out of time whose sense of duty remained as sharp as ever, Blade had accomplished the impossible. They weren't the Avengers yet, not in name, perhaps not even in spirit, but the core was there. They were learning to trust each other, finding common ground in their shared disbelief at the Squadron's absolute power. Their first true act, a direct defiance of the Squadron's authority, wasn't a grand battle, but a quiet rescue of a group of dissidents. It was messy, uncertain, but it was heroic. It was the spirit of the Avengers, raw and unrefined, emerging from the depths of a twisted reality. They proved that heroism wasn't dependent on a team's formation, but on the courage within each individual, waiting for the right spark, the right catalyst to ignite. In the end, this makeshift team, guided by Blade's grim determination, confronted the Squadron and even the architects of this reality, Mephisto and Coulson. The fight was fierce, not just physically, but a battle for the very soul of the timeline. And when the dust settled, when reality finally began to ripple and snap back into its proper form, Blade found himself back in that New York alley, the familiar cityscape restored, the Avengers Tower standing proud and true. The experience was a chilling reminder that heroism isn't a given, it's a choice, a latent power within us all, waiting to be called upon. Blade, the Daywalker, had shown that even in the strangest, most corrupted realities, the spirit of Earth's mightiest heroes could find a way to manifest, simply needing one person to refuse to let it die. What are your thoughts on this incredible alternate reality? Do you believe heroism is an intrinsic quality waiting to be awakened? Share your insights in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the stranger corners of the Marvel Universe, please consider subscribing or following for more stories like this. Until next time, keep exploring the extraordinary.